Welcome to Ask Glenn, everyone. Today with me, I have David, and David is author. He's a retired cardiac anesthesiologist. So he wrote a book that is very, very, very personal to him. As you guys probably know by now, for those of you who've been hanging out with me for a long time or know me in my personal life, you will understand why this book is now becoming personal to me, because I spent many years in the OR and recovering from surgeries. And my last major surgery, which David and I spoke about this before, I got propofol fusion syndrome. And then I was a lucky person not only to get propofol fusion syndrome, but my blood turned acidic. And so we don't know how that happened. I still don't know how that happened. And it's been 12 years. And yeah, it's been almost 12 years. So we're going to talk about less about me and more about the book. So I'm going to let David take it away.
Okay, thank you, Wynn. First of all, thanks so much for having me on. And hello, everybody. So I finished a 36-year career as a cardiac anesthesiologist in Nashville. And during my career, I'd done a lot of writing, as a lot of docs do, chapters and textbooks and articles and that type of thing. But when I retired, I thought I really wanted to write a book about what we do in anesthesia and what a life in anesthesia was like. And I looked around to see what had been written, and I was stunned to find that with all the doctor books out there, there wasn't a single book that really described from the inside what goes on in the operating room from the perspective of the people at the head of the table. And that was amazing to me because, anesthesia itself is so amazing. When you think that the general anesthesia was discovered in 1847, and it's considered by many the most monumental discovery in all of medicine. And even with that, we know that anesthesia puts you to sleep, but we don't know how. It puts you to sleep, mammals, birds, reptiles, fish, insects, even the insect-eating Venus flytrap is rendered asleep by our agents. Seed germination stops. And yet you take our vapors away, they all wake up again. And we don't even know how. So to me, it's a fascinating subject. And then even more amazing that no doctor had ever really described what goes on in the OR from their perspective. So I wrote a book called Saving Grace: What Patients Teach Their Doctors About Life, Death, and the Balance in Between. In the book, I describe a little bit about my sort of going into anesthesia, because the book needed a little chronological structure. And I describe a lot about what it is we do in the OR. Anesthesiologists have been termed the ICU doctors of the operating room, because no matter how sick you are, no matter how big the operation, we're going to get you through your surgery and get you back again. So this is an inside story of what goes on. That it's a hidden world that's really known only to the doctors and nurses who work in the OR. It's not shown on TV or in a movie with any accuracy. The practice of anesthesia has been described as 99% boredom and 1% sheer terror. So the book is a lot about that 1%. Some of the things I go through are, what it's like to try to settle a surgeon down when a patient's bleeding to death and get him calm so that he can focus on his work. How do we stay calm when we're fighting for a patient's life? How do we react to a death in the OR or an unexpected miraculous save? What's the secret language that we use among doctors? So it's a real inside, sort of never been told a story before. But more than that, I wanted to make a book that really had a solid foundation to it. And so as I wrote it, I found that as I talked about some of the things I did, all the things that I learned in that process, and in fact, that the patients taught me. And that's why the subtitle of the book is What Patients Teach Their Doctors About Life, Death, and the Balance in Between. And I tried to accomplish that by, in each of the 15 chapters, having a doctor-patient interaction that demonstrates our shared humanity, demonstrates what are the things that bring us together as humans. Some are emotions, some are characteristics, some are principles by which we live, but taken together, they're the critical components that make us who we are. And as such, some of the chapter titles are respect, trust, gratitude, faith, allegiance, grief, things that all people share between them. So at the end of the day, my goal in the book, in addition to giving you this inside story of the operating room, was that readers would view their own doctor in a new light, in a way they'd never seen him before, in a much more human appreciation for who they are, warts and all, that it would cause the reader to reflect on the fact that sooner or later, like it or not, all of our lives are going to end in our death. And most important, that by reflecting on things like this, it would change the way the reader lives each and every day. And so the book is Saving Grace, What Patients Teach Their Doctors About Life, Death, and the Balance in Between.
And now I'm going to admit to you guys something. Since I've been in the ICU 1,000 times over myself, / 1,000 times, 2 times as a family member, and it's not pretty as a family member. And I have deep respect for those who took care of me. And when it comes down to it, I am not afraid of death. I am not afraid of dying. I have a medical plan all lined up. I have my medical 5 wishes all lined up. And I am, in the next couple of years, going to create a living will and create a will in general, because I'm not afraid of dying. And nor was my mom. My mom, for those of you that don't know, for those of you that haven't hung around with me for a long time, my mom died of slow leaking brain aneurysms. I thought it was meningitis, but it turned out it was slow leaking brain aneurysms that sent all of us for a loop. But she goes, I'm not afraid of dying, because she said to me what she wanted done and what she wanted to happen afterwards. I knew this. I finally admitted it to everyone in the room, including my dad, who didn't know. And that threw everyone for a loop, that I knew what she wanted done. And so I'm like, I'm not afraid of dying. I am, no matter how sick I get, no matter how many more surgeries I have, if it's my time to go, it's my time to go. And I think that, in my own personal opinion, I think that patients get so nervous about the anesthesiologist and the doctors and everything else, that they forget that anesthesiologists and doctors are just human. And at the end of the day, they don't want to go home and have a patient die. But at the end of the day, I'm thinking, okay, it's just another surgery, so here we go.
Yeah, what you say is absolutely right. I really admire patients like you that have had so many surgeries and that have the equanimity to go into the operating room yet again for yet another surgery. It is not easy. Um, I don't know how you do it. And one of the things that I wanted to bring out in the book, and that I think that most of the men and women that I worked with in medicine, we all felt the same way, and that is that it is absolutely a privilege to take care of patients. That we're given this unbelievable honor and responsibility, and it with that in your training, you go through this little period where you're a little full of yourself and puffed up when you start your medical school education. But at some point, you have to make a transition where you realize that you're there for the patient, not the other way around. And
No.
that taking care of people is just an absolute privilege.
And I think that so many people say, I'm nervous, I'm nervous, I'm nervous. This scares me. I'm like, no, it's you're dealing with humans. We all deal with humans on a daily basis, whether it's the bus driver, the delivery person. We are just dealing with humans in a different sense when we go into the operating room. And yes, 9 times out of 10, we come out, but sometimes the body decides, look, it is time to go, almost time to go. In my case, the body decided it was almost time to go. And thank God that the doctors absolutely saved my life. And thank God that the anesthesiologist stopped whatever stopped the propofol, and they put me on a different anesthetic. But at the same time, people, we're all humans. We all are dealing with humankind on a daily basis.
Yeah, one of the things I tried to get through in the book was as much as there's the medicine part, and all right, you do this technique, you use that medicine or whatever it might be. At the end of the day, this is a human to human interaction. And you've got to realize the vulnerability that a patient feels. And you just have to go about your work with compassion and kindness, some humility, realizing that there's so much out of your control. There's only the things that you can control. And let me say one little thing about when patients expressed that they were frightened about anesthesia. I would always tell them about how safe it was, and in fact, nowadays general anesthesia is unbelievably safe. The monitoring that we have and the techniques that we have, it's just remarkably safe. And then I'd often add a little joke at the end, which was, we only charge for waking you up. The going to sleep part is for free.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
we want to charge you, so we're going to wake you up.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I think and they make flavored anesthesia, but that's for the kids. That's not
Yes.
for the adults. And my God, it smells like cherry with medicine in it. And I'm like, oh my God, can we just get away from the cherry with medicine in it? But at the end of the day, it's the doctors and the patients are human alike. The patient may be lying on a table and the doctor may be working on their back, but at the end of the day, these doctors are trained to the highest capabilities. And I have, as you guys know, I have one of the top rated hospitals. I have access to one of the top rated hospitals 5 minutes away from my house, called the Mayo Clinic. And the Mayo Clinic is nothing to sneeze at. And when I first went into the Mayo Clinic, of course, the Mayo Clinic's beautiful. Of course, people fly out to a Mayo Clinic, including here in Phoenix, Arizona, to get whatever they need done. And I had a pulmonologist looking me straight in the face and said, Miss Charles, why did they do a sleep study at your home when, and this was in Aspen, Colorado, when they know full well you have CP and you're supposed to be in a sleep clinic? We finally figured out insurance purposes, but I have never in my life had a doctor look at me straight in the face. Yes, I have, but in that sense, he's like, I'm trained to do sleep studies, and let's do the appropriate one. So sometimes my main point in this story, sometimes you gotta trust the doctors, and these doctors at the Mayo Clinic are very educated. I mean, the Mayo Clinic is nothing, nothing to sneeze at. So sometimes people have got to quit saying I'm nervous and got to trust in the anesthesiologist and trust in whatever higher power you believe in, because with that higher power and with the anesthesiologist, you're good to go. And with all the rest of the team, you're good to go. So knock it off, people. The next time you go into surgery, quit saying I'm nervous, quit saying, because again, if you put yourself in the nervous mental head space, that doesn't help anyone. So that's what now I have to practice what I preach, but I'm so used to doing it that it's not even funny. But I think the less nervous we make the patients about anesthesia, the better.
Yeah, you have to understand, we want the patients to do better even than they want themselves to do better. You know, I mean, we're just absolutely dedicated to doing the very, very best we can for that patient, because I mean, look at the position that we are allowed to be in. One of the things that amazed me about being in anesthesia was, let's say, and with everything nowadays, that you meet them just before they go into the OR. It's all this, save money. So I'll meet a cardiac patient in the holding area, and inside of 10 minutes, they're trusting me to literally take them closer to death than they'll ever come in this world, and then bring them back again. And that was always really remarkable to me, that bond between patients that we were given.
Yep. Yep. And in this sense, you only have a couple minutes before surgery. Yes, I've been there, done that, and I've met with several doctors in a holding area. I'm like, geez, okay. And then I have to tell them, I have to say no, in my case, no propofol, and they look at me like, when you know what you're doing, you know your body best. I'm like, well, this is part of my medical field, and some of them look at me like, we're not allowed to use propofol on you. I'm like, yeah, because that's what happens. But they're usually pretty good when I'm my own patient advocate. So when I speak up, they usually listen. But my main point being is always, and now you can't do this necessarily during COVID, although the roles with COVID in the hospitals keep changing every which way. So always have a patient advocate with you, just in case that you forget something.
Yes, I took my wife to an endocrinologist yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was the advocate, and I wasn't there as the doctor advocate. I was there as the husband advocate,
Ah,
and I know that when you see somebody, it's a little emotionally charged. You've got your concerns, and sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. And it's just good to have a second person there to remind you, remember that other question that you wanted to ask. Or when the doctor is giving you an explanation and you've got all these things running through your head, you've got your advocate there who's listening and is able to digest it a little bit better. So I always advocate you should have at least another person there who is helping you, interpreting for you, assisting you, whatever role it is that they can play, calming you down.
Calming down, yeah, because there are times you can't focus on what you're trying to focus on, and patient advocates turn. I have a couple in my life that turn and say, we're going to get this done and we're going to do it well. And so so it's always good to tell the doctor, yes, I'm bringing my patient advocate. Yes, she will be wearing a mask. I know with COVID right now, they're saying, for the kids' sake, they're saying one parent could go in, but at least they're now opening it up. And I say, look, a patient advocate for my disability is medically necessary. I'm not doing this alone. Because you guys give me too much information, and so I need a patient advocate just to calm me down, and then ask the questions that I forgot. So
yeah, and when the doctor wants you to have an advocate, we know that when we give an informed consent, let's say you're going to have surgery, we do the informed consent. We know that only about 30 to 40% of what we say gets through and sticks with the patient. It's either because it's emotionally charged, or it's too much information, or it's a little too technical. So having an advocate there is something that your doctor really wants you to have, because then you can walk out of the room and say, well, no, don't you remember he said this? And it's just a whole better interaction with your physician
isn't that
or nurse practitioner, or whoever it is you're seeing.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Because no one told me that. I always brought people along with me just because of my disability, but no one told me that. See, I learn something new every day, that a patient advocate is a good thing. And yes, it could be a family member. Yes, it could be a professional patient advocate. I have a couple. I have doctors in my own family that I can ask to explain stuff to me. But I have a couple good friends that can break stuff down, and so yeah, it's always fun having the friends break stuff down when the doctor doesn't break stuff down. And even with a patient advocate there, it's interesting because I had a neurologist, and yes, I'm in the middle of switching neurologist to a better neurologist with a better manner. And even with my patient advocate there, I had to speak up the first time I met him. The first time I met this neurologist down in Phoenix, Arizona, where I'm based now, he starts blabbering off, and I was thinking, I said something right at the beginning of the patient, right at the beginning of the appointment. I said, no, I'm a new patient. He came in with all these lists of stuff that I never had done. And I said, I am a new patient. And he looks at me, slash my patient advocate, and he goes, oops, and runs out the door and grabs the new patient paperwork. And I'm like, this is a great way to start off a doctor-patient relationship. This is a great way. And then I'm like, well, and then he goes, well, you had the MRI weekends and to find the MRI. And I'm like, this is, that was only my second appointment with him. I'm like, this is great. Because of COVID, people are overstaffed. People are understaffed, overworked. So it's a fine line. So my point being, it's always, always, always bring a patient advocate with you because that's the best bet.
Yeah, and if something seems off to you, the white coat and the doctor can be intimidating, but if something seems off, speak up and say what it is that seems off.
Yeah.
We want I mean, we just want the best for our patients. And when we slow down enough to actually listen to the patient, we hear some pretty good things.
Yeah.
Things that are very, very useful. And sometimes you have to tell the doctor, wait, slow down just a little bit. You're going too fast.
Exactly. So, David, where can people find the book? I am assuming it's on Amazon for pre-order. And yes, it will be in audio format when it gets released in January, which is right around the corner now. So I'm presuming that it can be found on Amazon. And I'm also presuming that it will be on Audible and all that good stuff too.
Yeah, it's on Goodreads and Barnes and Noble and Amazon and stuff. And we've got a website, savinggracebook.com. If there's a number of books that are written called Saving Grace. Mine has the subtitle, what patients teach their doctors about life, death, and the balance in between. But if you want to go to the website, I've got an audio excerpt. I've got a little written excerpt. I've got some blurbs from some other authors that have commented really kindly about the book. And just to remember the website, it's just remember the name Saving Grace, add book to that, savinggracebook.com. And you can learn about the book and, what I attempted to do and a little bit about who I am and that type of thing. And it is, I can tell you, when it is a great book. I'm so proud of it. I'm just really excited to tell the stories that I do.
I bet you are. And I'm gonna be so happy when I can find it in audio, you guys, because I want to read this book now. I want to read this book because I want to hear the doctor's perspective. You guys know about my perspective, but you guys don't know about the nice anesthesiologist that I've had over the years. And my doctor who did many surgeries, and including my back, is probably now retired. And so you guys don't know how lucky I am to have the doctors that I've had and continued care to have the doctors that I have on a daily basis. And so now I don't need as many surgeries as I did, but you never know. With CP, it could change in 2 seconds flat. So I want to thank David for coming on the show, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I certainly did. And it's savinggracebook.com. And yes, you can go look for it on Amazon. You can go pre-order it on Amazon. And then it will be out in January. And audio is soon to come. And so be on the lookout for that book, you guys. Thanks, you guys. Bye, you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.